Welcome back to the channel, guys. Castor right here, and yes, I've been gone for almost 7 months more or less, and thanks to all of you that commented on Instagram asking me if I was doing okay. I'm just fine. And before we start this video, let me just sum it up. So I actually moved twice. I'm moving the studio. I'm still moving the studio. I went on vacation, I got COVID, and I was so burnt out from working full-time at work, photography, video, and of course I wanted to spend some time with the family. But right now I'm so much more refreshed, full of energies, and I cannot wait to talk about this video. So into this video, we're gonna be talking about the Sony A7C Mark II, some of the features that I consider that this camera is gonna have, coming right up. So welcome back to the channel, guys. Castor right here, and today, like I mentioned before, we're gonna be talking about the Sony A7C Mark II. And if you don't wanna watch the whole video, the Sony A7C Mark II is going to be a watered down version of the Sony A7 IV, so you can stop the video and that's it, go watch something else. But hold on, there are gonna be some caveats, of course, and that is exactly what we're gonna be talking about in this video. Now, with the first version that I have right here, this camera was pretty much, all they got from the Sony A7 III, slapped in a smaller format, removed a couple of buttons, and, you guys know the story, adding a flip-out screen. And that was the Sony A7C. So what can Sony do different while keeping, the core of the Sony A7 IV? Well, one of the things that is not going to happen, in my opinion, is going to be the Sony A7C Mark II having, higher megapixel resolution, perhaps the 33 megapixel that we have in the Sony A7 IV. And there are a lot of reasons why. I think that Sony is going to keep the same 24.2 megapixel, maybe 26 megapixel, but we're not going to see, anything above, 28 megapixel perhaps in this camera. Now remember, this camera is supposed to be a camera for everyone. It's a camera that can be taken professionally, but it's not aiming to professionals necessarily. Again, it's a camera that vloggers, love. It's a camera that enthusiasts love, and it's a camera that even professionals photography love, and they find that 24 is just more than enough, especially if you do video, which is one of the main reasons why a lot of people get this camera, because now we have the flip out screen. You're not gonna need more than 24 megapixels. So when it comes to megapixel count, guys, we're gonna have the same. Now let's talk about the ergonomics of this camera, because this is probably one of the coolest looking Sony cameras, in my opinion, that doesn't break the bank. And the Sony A7C, at the beginning, I was kind of like questioning some of the ergonomics, like for example, the grip. I can see that the grip was a little bit too shallow for my taste. But then I found that I use this camera a lot with, prime lenses, such as the 40mm f2.5 that I have right here. I don't use it with very heavy lenses. For everything else, I use the A1 at the studio or the A7 IV, for travel, video, and so on. Now, one of the reasons why I pick this camera every single day is because of that, because of the ergonomics, because how portable it is. And if you could actually remove the lens and put the sensor cap, you could literally fit this camera in your pocket if you're wearing cargo pants or, baggy shorts or so on. So the Sony A7C Mark II is going to have the same geometry. So I don't foresee Sony changing anything on the appearance of this camera. Now, one of the things that we could see, Sony did something interesting here in this model. They have the silver one top, and then there's another one that is so black. I think that Sony perhaps could actually offer new color versions here. Fuji has done that before. That's a possibility there that we may see in this camera. I think it may be fun just to have, cool colors to choose from, but who knows? Now let's talk about the EVF, because we do have to talk about the EVF when we talk about the ergonomics. Now, the EVF allows this camera to actually be what this camera is, right? Very squarey. rangefinder style. You know, the EVF's located at the side on the left side. Now, when it comes to the resolution of this EVF, you know, I believe we have about 2.3 million dots, and I think that Sony may go, you know, a little bit higher, maybe 3.6. But to be honest with you, I've been shooting with this camera, with the Sony A7C, a lot using the screen, and it's something that I never thought that I would say, but you know, running and gunning, you know, having fun with the camera, having fun with the family, friends. Yes, I use the screen more than ever before, you know, with this particular camera. But if you're a photographer that has this camera as your only pro camera, I think that you're going to benefit from more resolution, and I think that this is the reason why I think Sony will actually start retiring, you know, those slow refreshed EVFs and give us something of a higher quality. Because to be honest with you, with the current version, if you look through the EVF for a longer period of times, you know, that slow refresh rate, it just gets me a little bit dizzy, to be honest with you. Kind of like one of the reasons why I use the back of the screen. But again, back to that, the Sony A7C Mark II should have, in my opinion, higher resolution EVF while maintaining the same size. Now let's talk about the flip out screen, because the resolution of this flip out screen is terrible, guys. It's 921,000 dots of a monitor, and to be honest with you, this screen is not the best screen to gauge exposure. It's not the best screen to gauge colors, and I mean, I always use zebras in this camera no matter what. Now in the Sony A7 IV, we have a slightly higher, kind of like above 1 million dots monitor screen, but even that one is not that great, and it's kind of like crappy, and it's kind of like why I'm so disappointed when I look at the screen of the Sony A7 IV, but it does the job. So I think that Sony is going to give us, you know, the same screen that we have in the Sony A7 IV, which is slightly higher resolution. Now, one thing that we are gonna see for sure, because we have seen it, Sony's gonna include in the Sony A7C Mark II the brand new menus and the touchscreen capabilities, because once you get used to that menu, it's really hard to go back to the older menus. And you know, that was something that I was fighting a little bit, but now that almost all my cameras have the new menu, I just wish this camera right now have the brand new menu with touchscreen capability, which is something that we don't have here. You know, we don't have touchscreen capabilities, only touch to focus on the version 1. Now let's talk about video capabilities in this camera, because the Sony A7C Mark II definitely will have 10-bit video capabilities. Now there's several reasons why. You know, any camera today that, you know, it is more than $1,200, $1,500 that doesn't have 10-bit video capability is kind of like a skip for most people, especially, you know, once you get used to color grading with 10-bit, how easy it is. S-Log3, you know, it's kind of like something that you can now live without once you get used to. Now, if Sony skipped the 10-bit, I think that they are going to fail with the Mark II, and that's one of the reasons why I think they will put it. They know what they're up against, and perhaps, you know, it's going to be a diluted down version of the 10-bit. It may not be 422, it may be 420 all the way to 60p, or it may be 422 up to 30p, and the 60p may be only 420. Nonetheless, you know, I'm fine with that. Most likely we're also going to have the 120 or maybe 240 in full HD. That will be so much more welcome, but 10-bit is coming to the Mark II for sure. Now let's talk about the SD card slot on the Mark II, because when this camera was announced, you know, a lot of people complained because it only had one SD card. And Sony is not going to give us two SD cards. That's my prediction for this camera, for the sole reason that they're going to try to keep the camera, you know, small, and also it's a camera that is not meant to be pro grade. So for that reason, Sony is going to keep the same card. They may actually add a CF Express Type A, one slot plus a CFA Type A. You know, I can see that happening, but definitely, you know, you're not gonna get a dual SD card slot. I hope I'm wrong, because it will be so awesome. Now, one of the things that I want to see in the Mark II is, please give me the mechanical shutter speed up to 8,000 of a second. Now, the Mark I has the mechanical shutter up to 4,000 of a second, and I live here in Miami, Florida, shooting, you know, in broad daylight with fast lenses. This one 2.5, kind of fast, right? A lot of the times, you know, I wish that I had that capability, and I don't, and I have to switch either to the mechanical shutter which it goes up to 8,000, or you know, put an ND filter. So if the camera is gonna inherit, you know, the guts from the A7 IV, I can see, you know, the A7C Mark II having the 8,000 of a second shutter speed, which I don't know why they cripple it in here, because you do have it in the A7 III, and this one actually is all the guts from the Sony A7 III. Those are kind of like purposely inflicted cripple, you know, just for the sake of making the camera less expensive. But 8,000 of a second for the Mark II, it is a must-have, Sony. Now, the one thing that I think the Sony may do in this body, and I forgot to mention that before when I was talking about ergonomics, is adding an additional button right there. And I think that Sony could do that. You know, they do have the space there. I mean, I don't know what's inside, but I'm assuming that they could do it. You know, that would be really nice, especially because I really use on my other cameras a button specifically for eye out of focus on and off. So that would be really nice to have that button there as well, so I don't have to deconfigure anything that I have. But I don't hold my hopes so high on that one, just a wish. Okay, this one is going to be a blast if they do it. Now, to change focus point, you have several options with the Mark I. Number one is to actually touch the screen, because we do have touch to focus. And number two is using the D-pad. You press the center button and then you go up and down, you know, to move focus points across. So the most efficient one is actually touching with your finger, but if you're using the rangefinder, you know, it's kind of hard, you know, doing this without touching something else. And I think the Sony could potentially bring us, you know, a joystick. I think that if they move this button over here, we could have a joystick right there. That would be such a nice feature to have in the Sony A7C Mark II. Once again, like I mentioned before in my last comment, I don't hold my hopes so high on that one, but it'll be really, really nice if they do. So guys, let me know, what else would you like to see in the Sony A7C Mark II? Drop your comments down below with that feature that you must have in the version 2. And again, guys, you know, I will see you for sure in the next video. Take care.